Welcome to Sidesteps, this podcast with me, Rabbi Alon Ferency, eclectic cleric, www.eclecticcleric.com. I'm welcoming Lara J Day, and we've had a few conversations on the phone, and it's really delightful to see you in person and talk about sort of creativity through seasons and through the embodied life. I'd love to hear just about you generally and the work, up to and including the work you're doing now, but sort of your spiritual trajectory, your creative life. I know you were a dancer at various points, so I'd love to hear more. And those listening, I'm sure, would also appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm delighted to be here as well. And
Pleasure.
I would say that the biggest turning point in spiritually speaking in my life really was just shortly after my daughter was born. I tripped into chronic unwellness. And that, of course, was a catapult into even deeper seeking and studying and, all the self-help books I could get my hands on and all the diets and all the supplements and all the approaches and all the practitioners and all the healers. And I mean, I was really deep in that, cave of healing for a good decade. And then in that same time, my daughter trip, we were on the East Coast, and she was bit by a tick and Lyme disease. And so, when you're up against a wall like that, especially with your child, you study more intensely than you ever would if that was not the case. And so I definitely share that wounded healer story that so many of us in this space share. And then that said, in retrospect, so where I've landed is I'll just talk about my current work now. I have sort of two things that I'm offering at the moment that are standalone and separate and yet also in a way connected. But the one is what I call neurogenic qigong, which is my own mashup of two separate modalities that again could stand alone. One being neurogenic tremor work, which I studied with an organization called TRE, Tension and Trauma Releasing Exercises. They're based in the Bay Area. And basically, if you think of the way that a gazelle or an animal might shake, take a gazelle after getting chased by a lion, when it finally recognizes that it's not going to be breakfast, lunch, or dinner, it will wander off to the side of the herd and shake and tremble. And then when that process is naturally complete, it will come back to the herd, graze as if nothing had happened, happy, healthy gazelle, no PTSD, right? Turns out that all mammals share this innate mechanism within our autonomic nervous system. And it's actually a mechanism that allows us to release the trapped tension from an overstimulating event. Now, humans are mammals, which is sort of surprising to some of us, but we're mammals. And if you can imagine, if you were in a public space and you started shaking or trembling, probably the rest of the human tribe would not go, oh, right on, Alon's having a release, we'll just let him complete his process. They might rush over, ask you if you needed, an ambulance, if you wanted to go to the ER, if you had some medication you needed to take, maybe you need a shot of whiskey. I don't know, but like, how can we help you control this? How can we help you make it stop? So we are socially conditioned, just our society and our culture. We're socially conditioned to shut that down, control it. That we think it's scary or weird or in some way, shape, or form a problem. So so that was a bit of a long-winded explanation of
No,
the
I really enjoyed the length of it. It was very helpful to imagine. It fits with some things I was reading not long ago and some things that happened last night. So I loved it.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that in a
I
second. But
almost want to go farther back into your life, but we'll get there.
okay, yeah, we will. We can go into all the nooks and crannies. But I mashed that modality up with traditional Chinese energy medicine, otherwise known as qigong healing or medical qigong, which looks like working with the meridian lines, the point systems along the meridian lines, the five element system, wood, fire, earth, metal, water, the organs, and then some other forms that I learned from my very eclectic and wonderful teacher in Colorado. So, so I've been doing that work since 2008, and then there's this whole separate practice that I just fell in love with. Also, the year my daughter was born, that was a big year for me. It was like a lot of
Yes. well,
a
birth
lot,
of a child is often the
yeah,
case. Yeah.
a lot of things really dropped in. It
And you
catapulted
mentioned
me
before
into
we
my.
got on, your daughter is almost out of the house. So
She's she's going to be
that's a
18 in
wild,
September. I can't believe it. Yeah.
yeah,
So and she's just thriving, which is the best thing that,
that's great.
that that a mom can experience is a thriving child. So so okay, so my this is my second offering is a practice that I learned the year she was born with my qigong teacher. So I went to go see my qigong teacher because I wasn't feeling well. Someone recommended her. I didn't even know what qigong was, and I had this experience where she did a session with me as a client practitioner. So within qigong, there's the personal practices, which most people think of tai chi. These slow moving uh,
Yeah, that was what came to
meditation.
my mind. Yeah.
Yes, meditation through movement. So Tai Chi is a form of Qigong that is a martial art in nature, but it's under the greater umbrella of Qigong, which simply means cultivating universal life force energy or the practice or good work of cultivating universal life force energy. So Qi meaning universal life force energy and Gong meaning a good work or practice. So there's those personal practices, and then there's the clinical work, which looks like client on the massage table and practitioner moving energy with their hands, consciousness, mind, like that. So she didn't even touch me, but I walked out of her office, and I had no clue. Still, I didn't even know that what she did was qigong. I didn't. I was like so green to the whole experience, and I just walked out of there feeling like I had been breathing underwater and I wasn't aware of it. And when I walked out of her office, it was like my lungs had more space. I could breathe more deeply. I remember feeling like I was actually physically taller. And I went to the grocery store that I always go to, and it was like I had a different bird's eye view of the cash register. And I just thought, it was a trip. I was like, what did she do to me? And so I instantly signed up for her 4-year program. So I retreated a little bit, but that first year in her program, she taught this beautiful winter solstice practice, which is not a qigong practice. Again, I referred to her earlier as quite eclectic, and she
Okay.
is. And this practice is it's a winter solstice practice, so it's done at the darkest time of the year, midwinter. And it is all about aligning with the quiet, the darkness, the stillness. When we are out shopping compulsively, overindulging in sugar and alcohol, jam packing our December calendars, flooding our lawns with LED light displays, just like a slap in the face to the darkness, like we will not be quiet, we will not dive inward, this massive distraction. And so it's sweet. It's just enough structure to give you a way to, put one foot in front of the other, and we're
Mm.
doing this thing, and here's this ritual. It's non-denominational, and yet it's open enough that anybody could take it and make it their own, regardless of what their belief system is, what they call the mystery, that's something greater. It's just really about your personal relationship with, again, however you name the mystery. So I just completely fell in love with it. It was something beautiful to bring more meaning and depth into this, my new little family bubble with our brand new baby girl. And over the years, I would tell my girlfriends about it, and they'd want more guidance, more information. And then this book and this Oracle deck kind of spontaneously and organically um, just happened by accident. So so
The
that
deck and the book are how old now?
so I self-published in 2019.
So more recent. Okay.
Yeah,
But
and
10 years into the process, he's started making it more concrete.
yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, yes, exactly. So I'd already been doing the practice, year after year, returning to it, falling in love with it, and then a couple years ago, I got picked up by publishers, and the same publishers, Beyond Words. They're fabulous. They're the same folks who published The Secret, if you remember that movie.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
quite popular in its day, still is, and so now it's available, in all the places on all the platforms, and yeah,
That's exciting.
it is exciting.
That is
Yeah, it's
exciting.
very
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
I want to share an observation of a pattern in your work. Because I just learned about the trembling response in other primates or other mammals. And I Sometimes I get that if I sob, not so
Mm,
much trembling, but that release from a lot of energy going through me, not often enough. And then you described the solstice practice as a reaction to human desire to hold darkness at bay.
mm.
And in both of the stories you told, I heard a story about there is a natural human way or typical or an expected human way to behave. And then there's a societal overlay of let's resist that,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
trembling or embracing darkness or stillness would be what the world is, what our physical bodies and mystery
Yeah.
creator, the benevolence is calling us to do. And we're like, no, we'll rather not right now.
No, no, I don't want to go there. That's
let's, let's,
unknown. That's
let's,
scary, right? The
yeah.
darkness is scary. Those big emotional releases are scary.
Or
You know,
embarrassing.
yeah, yeah, or like exactly, right? Like society says this is not okay. This is cringy. This is,
Cringy. Yeah. There's the word for it. Yeah.
this is gonna get you ejected from the tribe. But for me, I think one of my core underlying beliefs is that the more we align with nature, the more we uncover and discover our own highest human potential. And the more we cut ourselves off, shut ourselves up in these 70-degree boxes year round, cardboard boxes, rubber soles on our shoes, afraid of the sunshine and, not ever looking at the moon and the stars, like simple things, eating seasonally. It's not rocket science, but our our current culture is so cut off from the rhythms of nature, and I feel that God imprint, or frequency or organization or intelligence or whatever you want to call it
The
is
best word I heard recently was the benevolence.
the benevolence. I love
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah. I loved it too.
it's it's so available in nature, right? And it's I mean, like, nature is one of the most available portals that we have, I believe, into connection with that something greater. And again, the more we try to outsmart nature, like out chemical her, out, whatever it is, I think we tend to just get sicker and more miserable, honestly. So, and somewhere in there, there's a balance. We're maybe progressing as a species. I'm not sure that's up for debate, but but
Back and forth at the same time. Yeah.
yeah, but that aligning with nature for me is just huge. Yeah. So, and
Okay.
that's what this work is about, right? The Sacred Nights practice. It's about beginning to from the starting point of the winter solstice, begin to pay attention to these seasonal rhythms, begin to notice how our inner world is echoing or mirroring the outer world of nature, as above so below, as without so within. Our internal world of emotions and thoughts and the realm of the psyche goes through the same cycle: winter, spring, summer, fall. And if we begin to just pay attention to that, it's incredibly powerful and empowering. Yeah.
So there's so many things I want to follow up with you there, but I'm going to go in two veins and you can approach either one or braid them together. I want to go farther back in your personal history and find the trajectory of you learning about and embracing your natural and embodied self. Because it wasn't just a one-time event of childbirth, right? There must have been stories that preceded it and a trajectory that goes beyond it. Because I think a lot of people could have a child and then just return to their office job. And then I love the concept of seasons in creating, since so much of my work is around arts, creating and writing and performance. I know you are a dancer from a younger age, so I'd love to hear also your sense of the cycles and seasons of your life as a creative person. So you can approach those two ideas of learning
Yeah.
to be embodied, learning to be of nature, and learning to experience seasons creatively, or a third. But I just want to
Yeah.
throw those out as
I,
concepts.
okay. Remind me to come back to the approaching the seasons creatively.
Sure.
And I'll start with reaching farther back into my life. Yeah, dance was my identity growing up. I'm a dancer, right? My
When was
daughter's,
the first time you danced?
oh,
Do you have a memory
I,
of like dancing as a kid?
yes, I do. I have a memory of Bridget's ballet class. I adored her. I brought her to my second grade class for show and tell. my
You brought your
dance.
teacher?
I brought my dance teacher.
Your parents must have been so jealous. Everyone else brought their mom. No thanks, mom. Bringing Bridget. Oh man, that's excellent. Not a puppy.
Yeah, I have lots of memories of dance that are like really, really early on. It was,
Well, you
so
light
and
up when you talk about it. I want to hear more. I want to hear. I
yeah.
mean, those foundational experiences of exploring the creative self are so beautiful and
Yeah.
touching.
And it's funny because years later when I dove into qigong, and I was a yoga teacher for 7 years before I discovered qigong, and I went from dance to, there was some other things in between, but really dance to yoga to qigong. And so I say that I've been guiding bodies through space for like over 3 decades, because
Yes.
I started teaching dance in high school when I was 15 years old. I was asked to be a tap teacher at a local dance studio. So uh, that path of movement, of embodying, embodied movement has been there from the very beginning. That imprint. I don't know how it works. I don't pretend to know how it works. Is it past life stuff? Did I just come in with the soul as a general plan? Are we just remembering this lifetime that's already happened? I don't know how it works, but that was there from the beginning. And it's interesting because I look back now, and from the Chinese medicine perspective, I am constitutionally a wood person.
Okay.
And wood is our movement. It's that impulse to, if you think of like a spring green shoot, pressing through the topsoil, it's that
Oh,
that impulse to move through our life and to choose, do we go under, around, over, through, and to kind of direct the events of our life and make decisions. But movement is a big piece of it. And so it was interesting when I made that connection when I was in my training, like, oh, I'm a wood person, and oh, that makes sense. Movement, I'm a dancer, and and all these
we
things.
tend to be somewhat coherent as people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I think we're, again, I don't know how it works, but I do believe that we're like pre-programmed. You can take five siblings and they'll all experience the same event within their family, and one trips into people pleasing, another trips into anger, another trips into, as their compensation, their ways of compensating with, whatever the challenging event was that they all experienced. So we do come in with I call it like my special friend that I came to cozy up to and really get to know this theme in this lifetime. And movement is a big piece of that for me. So um yeah. And
I,
then
that's really my special friend is really beautiful.
yeah, so it's my special friend. Yeah, wood
Which
is my
is
special friend.
movement. You would identify
Movement,
that as movement, not dance, not just dance, but movement.
not just dance. No, yeah, definitely just movement in general. Yeah.
And then guiding people in movement,
And guiding
introducing
people
people
in
to your
movement.
special friend.
Yeah, and it's really it comes very naturally to me. I remember in my yoga teacher training, or in my qigong training, it's so easy for me to go into my body, to feel what I'm feeling as I'm moving, and then to express that with words in a way that people can grab onto and feel themselves, and begin to experience the movement or the energy for themselves in a way that I, I think that's a gift that I have. And I remember being in the trainings and watching my other, those that were in class with me at the same time, and how hard it was for them to get the words out and to explain what the body was doing and the right and the left side, and for me it was quite natural. So yeah, my special friend movement. And then the other piece about creatively thinking about the seasons, a, a, a funny little rabbit hole that I have ended tripping down into with my Oracle deck and the book and the 13 Sacred Nights practice that I'm sharing with the world, is researching the history of our holidays, our most
Mm-hmm.
commercialized holidays in Western culture in the United States specifically. And I, it wasn't something that I really intended to be an expert on, but I got picked up by publishers, like I mentioned, and they said, "Oh, will you write a history chapter because we think folks will be interested in the history of this practice?" And I thought, "Oh, yes, of course. I've been doing this practice for 15 years or however long it had been, but I don't actually know where it came from. I just learned it from my teacher, fell in love with it, and ran with it, and then shared it. And so I went into researching the history of the winter solstice, and of course, I ended up with a book that dives really deep into the history of our Christmas traditions, and I ended up uncovering a lot of what to me was really surprising information about where our holidays came from. I think a lot of us assume that our traditions, like, caught a ride on the Mayflower, like hitched a ride over, and then kind of just organically, in their own time and way, bubbled up from these various old world cultures that were imported into the United States. And it's just not that straightforward, the way that it all went down. There was a lot of really intentional molding and manipulation from those in positions of power in order to shape the behavior of the masses. And so I learned that about Christmas, and then I started talking about it on all of these podcasts and platforms, and then people would inevitably say, "Well, what do you know about Halloween?" Or what do you know about, Valentine's Day? And I'd go, "Oh, no, I'm just the Christmas girl. Like, I don't know about those other holidays." But then I eventually went, "What are you doing, Lara? Step into this role that people are asking you to step into." And I was getting curious myself. So I've read 32 books on the history of our holidays, and I dive deep when I go deep. So you have to be, careful what you ask me to
Some might say I'm obsessive with 32 books.
A little bit. I know. One of my good friends was like, "You probably just could have read 3 books."
Or 2. Maybe there's just one good one.
I was like,
one long book.
Yeah. So here's the point, is that we have landed in a place where we have no clue where our traditions originally came from, largely, right? The really hyper commercialized ones that you go to the grocery store, what holiday is coming like a couple months in advance, right? From the branding, the special candies, the disposable decorations, and it's all become so hyper commercialized and rather vacant of meaning. And my mission now, my current mission, is to return the soul to the solstice through this practice that we do in the darkness of the solstice season, and the holy to our holidays. And I think one of the ways to do that is to just pay attention to what nature is doing in each of the seasons around these holidays, and to use that as a point of inspiration for creativity. Because again, nature is a portal into the sacred, is a portal into our connection with the mystery. And so it's a beautiful way to bring meaning back, to begin to align with this natural, and I believe, a higher frequency intelligence. Like that.
I think you, like many people in my position as well, are afraid to use the word God, but that's the shortest spelling of the thing we are talking about.
It is. And
it's just a one-syllable spelling, one-syllable word for all of those concepts.
It's true. And thank you for saying that. I appreciate it, because I
always like to put that out to people, because I'm not using God to describe the thing your Sunday school teacher was talking about. I'm using it because it's a easy to pronounce word for mystery, benevolence, the great beyond, the deep within.
There's also resonance there, I believe, with that word. And I'm more careful on these platforms than I am, in my life and with my people, because I can just say it. But when I'm on these platforms,
it's a lot of baggage.
I try to be a little more, throw out the disclaimers, because I don't want anyone to be turned off by a word,
I mean, I always do that disclaimer so that we can use the word just because it's easier than every other word we could throw into the pot. Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Yes. Nature is a portal to God. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think nature, if you were to look for the things that would reconnect us to the original spirit or spirits of holidays, the most self-evident is the world around.
Yes.
And even prior to the arrival in America of these holidays, they were, do you know the word palimpsest? Have you ever heard this?
No.
It's like a rubbing on top of a rubbing. So, or building a new layer over an old text. they were already palimpsests of Phoenician and Philistine
Yeah.
holidays or Roman and Celtic holidays.
Yeah.
So we're
Right.
always building new accretions and new interpretations. Even if you look at Catholic practice in Central and West Africa, it's got a lot of, I don't know, I wouldn't say variant, but new practice that's culturally mediated. So
Yes. Yeah.
it's not always malevolent. It's just inevitable. And so if
Right.
you reconnect to these, I'm interested also that you're not just dwelling in the winter because these other holidays have cycles to them that bring life to us. I have a very small but important to me question that I've thought about, I haven't thought about in a long time. The transition from dance to yoga.
Hmm.
Ballet is turn out, which means you want your feet to be not parallel but splayed, and your inner hip turns away from each other. And
Hmm.
most of yoga is turn in, where
Hmm.
you're bringing you're rotating your thigh inward. Your right thigh would be going counterclockwise from above. What does that mean? Like,
What does it
and
mean?
yeah, why is there this whole artistic practice that isn't also inherently not great for your hips? Most of what we learned in yoga
Right.
was the turnout is actually unhealthy for your hips.
Right. Well, I think, yeah, I mean, there's all
And
kinds of,
there's so many dancers who go into yoga, and I wonder about that single distinct transition of different ways to approach the thigh and hip and what that means more
wow.
broadly.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can get specific about the thigh and hip, but
No, I wanted it to be broad. And what is
I,
why?
but I can say that, yeah, both ballet and yoga can cause wreak all kinds of havoc in the body. There's just absolutely.
Especially ballet.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of dancers are drawn to yoga for the same reason that I was. It's beautiful movement, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also most dancers who end up in yoga end up collapsing into their joints in the majority of the postures because we're so hyper flexible from all of our training. And you really have to learn if you have a good teacher. If you end up in a class with a, you know, 20 something year old yoga teacher and it's really just more like aerobics and there's not a real deep understanding of the alignment and what's going on in the opposing muscle groups, you're probably not going to get some real great guidance, but protective guidance.
Right.
But as a dancer, it actually being hyper flexible like that actually in some ways makes yoga harder because you can collapse into the joints on those postures, but you're not really activating the muscles. You're just collapsing into the joints and you're at full splayed
Oh,
out,
they always look like they were having an easier time.
you're doing the pose, your foot's wherever it's supposed to
Yeah.
be, but you're injuring the joint, in fact. And so, it's about finding that micro bend and engaging the opposing muscle groups. And so even though it looks like they're doing better than everybody else, that's not necessarily always the case. And there are a lot of yoga poses where it's really challenging for me to not collapse in that way and to actually engage the muscles. And even though it could look to the untrained eye like, oh, she's killing it. So
So, as you answered my very particular question, it raised a bigger issue as I observe your career, which is it's about healing and protecting people in movement. It's not you described sort of love of your what do you call it, your secret friend, your special friend,
it's my secret special friend. It's
special
not a
friend.
secret.
And now you were talking about, and this is sometimes true as we age past being the artist, the dancer, the performer, into the era of being a mentor and a caregiver, that we
Hmm.
teach people how to do it safely and heal and be protected. So I just want to observe that about you, that it's really neat to see you taking that level of concern and care about the people who are dancing and moving under your tutelage.
Yeah. And I think too that for me the transition from yoga to qigong was profound. I mean, I experienced qigong. I did my first qigong practice with my teacher you know, in a class setting, and I like immediately dropped yoga like a hot potato and like never went back to it. It was just full 180. This is my practice now. And for me, what was so incredible was actually tangibly feeling the energy in
Mm.
between my hands. And then the way that my teacher taught, and I jumped right into a 4-year program with her, a
You
4-year
said
medical.
that, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a lot, and it was very deep, but
Four
she
years and
really
32 books. Let's want
yeah,
to
4
write
years
down
and 32
examples
books.
of you deep diving.
Yeah, I'm like I'm
Lara
in.
likes
Let's
to
go.
deep dive.
And like on a whim, I'm just like, oh, somebody mentioned something, and then I'm down the rabbit hole. So, but the richness of the Chinese philosophy and the Chinese medicine was what I fell in love with, because you when you're doing these practices, one, they're more gentle, and they're just the movements are more simple, so you actually have this space in your consciousness and your mind to notice the experience of the energy. Whereas in Warrior 3, your thighs quivering, you're sweating bullets, like, you're not tuning in to the deeper energy currents that are, opening up. And yoga is a beautiful practice. I don't mean to slam it, but for me, I found something more profound in the qigong. And then in addition, you know, all of the history, and we're working with this channel, and these are the metaphors, and this is what it's doing in your physical body, this is what it's correlated to in your emotional body, these are the thoughts that it might be correlated to, these are the life events that it might be correlated to, and it's this really complete system. And I want to say also that yoga also has that potential. It's like a many-limbed
Mm.
practice, but what we do here in the United States is just the physical asana, which is really meant to prepare us for seated meditation and everything else. So it's not that yoga doesn't have that potential. It's just I wasn't finding it in the worlds that I was exploring.
A friend of mine described American yoga as the gymnastics part of
Yeah,
the full yoga
it
schema.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there are many other limbs. There's the pranayama, there's the seated meditation, there's self-inquiry, there's the ahimsa, non-harming. There's a lot more to it, but we've just extracted the aerobics part, and
I mean, it's interesting when you said the thing about Hero Warrior 3. It was interesting to think because I remember being 26 and needing that to get my mind to be quiet,
yes,
right?
yes,
Like I want this to be as intense as possible so I'm not thinking about a problem I'm having. And now I would like a really slower practice, not necessarily Qigong, but even when I do yoga right behind us, it tends to be much slower because I want to reflect on all the parts of my body and I want to think about the day ahead in the sense of it being embodied and getting ready for it. So it's a
I
nice
love.
experience of human life cycle too.
Yes, I love that you say that, because that's also something that I often say is, I found yoga again through the physical, through movement. I was really attracted to a movement practice, and same in my early 20s, or 21 or whenever it was, and I remember saying like, oh, because to me it was this new thing that I had never heard of or seen or experienced, and it was like, it's amazing. I can go in there and my mind is just quiet for like an hour and a half, and it's incredible, right? So yes, there is something to I think the timeline, and
Yeah.
maturing as a human, and there's a reason that most of the folks in my qigong world have gray hair, but not in a bad way.
No,
Sorry,
it's
people.
it's there's certain activities that are better. I mean, I take long walks. All of it.
Yeah.
That's my main exercise now, and I don't think I would have thought that's insane. How do you do that without your phone and a podcast or some music?
Right.
Yeah.
And then additionally, I think there's different entry doors for different people in different seasons of their life. And the yoga definitely introduced me to spiritual concepts
Oh
at
yeah.
that age of 21, that then I, went deeper with. And so
Yeah.
it's all relevant, and it's all beautiful, and yeah.
It was a gateway drug towards self-discovery, I think.
100%.
It was a
100%.
great place to start to get you into therapy eventually and going
Yes.
back to church or synagogue. Yeah.
Yes, it was definitely a gateway drug. Yeah.
Um, I want to go all the way back because whether it's past lives or any other metaphorical or metaphysical system, I think part of what you're describing about dance and children's dance and other arts making, I think it's innate to us. I think like the shivering, like the movement, it's shocked out of us by society, right? Sally, stop moving, stop fidgeting.
Yeah.
It's time to put your book down now. We've got to go to school.
Right.
Haven't you drawn enough today?
Yeah. Stop wiggling. Stop.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the joy of movement and dance is probably there from crawling,
Yeah.
right?
I agree. Yeah.
My
I
son
think,
caught me dancing recently. It was awkward.
how old is your son?
13. He walked in on me dancing to Daft Punk. I was having a little
Oh
dance party in
no,
this room. I didn't know anyone was home.
Dad. Cringy.
Oh, I'm super cringy. You're super cringy to your kids. Daddy met Britney Spears. No, Dad, you're
Oh.
not cool. You're not cool, Dad. You'll never be cool.
Oh no.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no,
I'm,
I agree. I think there's so much that is shocked out of us as children. And I had the incredible fortune to be able to homeschool
mm,
my daughter from the very beginning. And so she's never been in in any school, in a traditional school, definitely. And she is, like I said, she's almost 18 years old. She plays six different instruments. She is the youth ambassador for the California Bluegrass Association. She writes articles for Bluegrass
she should come out to
magazine.
East Tennessee. We're like the really a nexus for bluegrass.
Yeah, no, I know. There's a possibility that she may end up in Nashville someday. I mean, she's just deep, deep, deep in the world of bluegrass, but she also plays classical harp. She's played with, the adult orchestra here since she was, I can't remember if it was 13 or 14 years old. So she is, I think when children, I think every child is so luminous and so magnificent and so brilliant. And if they had the space and the opportunity to be self-led and to explore whatever it is that's lighting them up, I think our world would be a completely different place because we would all be here leaning into our gifts and our special friends, so to speak.
I'm rekindling that as so much of my work. And at the same time, when you speak, I have to be candid that I have messed up my kids. Right? Like if I were to homeschool my kids, I could mess them up all by myself without help from society.
No, you think that, but it's different once you've been in the system and then thinking about extracting your child out of that because they learn to be directed all the time in within that system, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason that the bell rings every so often. That system, that whole compulsory education system was based off of preparing people to be a part of a factory working
Sure.
situation.
No, I mean, I
So,
screwed up my
you
kids
know,
before they went to school.
well, you're going to screw up your kids regardless. That's part of being a parent. It's
Yes.
impossible not to. That's part of the plan. Is that remember when I talked about like we all, you could take five kids and they all experience the same thing. I had a relatively fine childhood and I do a lot of work of like exploring my inner wounds and I'm like diving deep into self-inquiry and self-awareness and all the things and like the events that triggered my inner wounds are laughable. They're ridiculous. So that's our stuff is going to get triggered early on in those first 7 years, regardless of how quote unquote perfect you are as a parent. And there's no such thing as a perfect parent because we're all here and we're all human, and part of the human condition is being perfectly imperfect. So
I mean, I try not to even use the word perfect because it's in my
right.
sense of the world, it's not real.
Yeah. So I have to uh, um, kindly disagree with your position that if you had homeschooled your kids, you would have messed them up.
No, I did mess them up regardless to homeschooling is my position. Whether or not I homeschooled them, I did mess them up.
Yeah, well, same here,
Yeah,
you
okay. I
know.
just want to I was very impressed with you. And I was like, I hope she also screwed her kids up
Of
because I
course I
can't
did.
imagine.
Of
Yeah.
course I messed her up in all kinds of ways,
Yeah.
and
Probably in a
and
good in the good ways.
she'll be working on that.
She'll get into yoga and it'll be your gateway drug to self-discovery and self-repair.
Right. Yeah, but I think that the gift of homeschooling, or at least the way that we did it, is that it allowed her to pursue what she was passionate about, rather than being in a setting where everybody studies the same thing, whether they're interested or not. It becomes very shallow learning because
Yeah.
most of the kids don't care about 90% of the topics that they're memorizing. And, and when a child is allowed to pursue what they're passionate about, it becomes lifelong learning. It's a part of their life path. It's, they're really developing their gift. So just a little shout out for homeschool there.
But it's your story too, because you described intensively studying either the holidays or qigong or the third one that you had mentioned where you just dove right into something. This was the 32 books and the 4-year program. I mean, you said that like when you have the chance to
it's true.
pursue. Oh, it was when your daughter was born and you were having a lot of health after tremors. You dove into the world of healing and body work. So that's who you are, and probably who many of us are naturally, is to sponge up all this information. And you're right, institutions don't manage that very well. They're not built for that.
It's not. Yeah, and I don't know what the solution is on a big scale, but yeah, I just am really grateful for the way that we were able to do it. Yeah.
You sound like you have a lovely relationship with her that most of all reads.
We do have an amazing relationship. Yeah. Yeah, we really do. And again, homeschool is, are you familiar with Gabor Mate?
Yes, because someone in our family has ADHD and he's done a lot of writing on that.
Yeah. Well, I love that man, and I've read all of his books. And
I read one of his books, but I can't remember the name. Yeah.
He wrote a book called Hold On to Your Kids. It was the first book that he wrote. He co-wrote it. And I read it. I had already been parenting the way I was parenting, but it really gave me permission to continue parenting the way I was parenting. And his, like the basic premise is that when you, the kind of way that we parent in the Western world, and especially with infants, is actually quite child cruel, or can be. And that when we sever that bond, that caregiver-child bond, before it really naturally would happen, like say in a natural tribal setting, that humans are creatures of attachment. And so we need air, we need food, we need water, and we need secure attachment. It's a non-negotiable. If you put a child or an infant in a void and they don't have attachment, they're not going to thrive. They're going to fail to thrive. And so when you take an infant or a preschooler or even a kindergartner, and you sever that caregiver child bond before it would happen naturally, that the child is then forced to seek attachment in their environment, because again, it's non-negotiable. And so what they're going to do is attach to their peers as opposed to their parent, because they're spending more waking hours with their peers than they are with their parent at home. They come home after school, it's some homework and dinner, to bed, and then off the next day, right? And so his argument was that then the kid grows up and hits the teenage years, and parents are wondering why the child isn't respecting them, isn't listening to them, and he's saying, well, because you severed that bond long ago, and their primary moral pole, their primary bond now is with their peers, no longer with the caregiver. And that happened way back in kindergarten or whatever it was. And so his argument is that children need the moral pole of their parents. Like, it's not appropriate for them to be looking for moral guidance from their fellow 13-year-olds, and it's a very interesting read, and I loved it. And it really gave me permission to continue parenting the way that was intuitive to me as a young mom. And yeah. It's interesting.
We could have an entirely different conversation on the lessons of parenthood, which have been powerful and difficult and strange for me, and overall worthwhile. But
do you have one child, or
I have 4 boys, and they're
4? Holy cow.
They're from 9 to 15. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't recommend it except for me. I love what I do, but I can't recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and just let me just reflect on some of the things you've been saying, because I want to see if I have any last thoughts or questions for you. I don't know, you seem to give your daughter and the world this preciousness. I can imagine it. And then a piece of this podcast and my work is helping people navigate blocks through lateral movement and the tension between the two Robert Frost quotes of the best way out is through and I took the road not taken, right?
Yeah.
Do we go through? Do we go around? So I do just quickly to wrap up. Would love to hear about a time in your life where you faced some sort of obstacle and how did you get around it?
Mm. Uh, the first one that comes to mind was fairly recent, within the last year, and the way around was total and complete surrender and just releasing the wheel and a deeper level of faith in God than I have ever accessed previously. And I'll tell the story because that's how I learn, is by hearing human stories. I really I get kind of bored by dry philosophy that isn't rooted in somebody's actual experience. But I had a loved one who was considering medically assisted suicide, and not even just considering. They were in a massive amount of pain. I would never wish this amount of pain on my worst enemy. Sustained pain for a long period of time. And this person who is part of my family, who I love dearly, was, just wide-eyed in a state of panic and terror for the amount of time that it just shouldn't be real. And this individual is also an atheist and kind of an angry, judgmental atheist. Just the polar opposite of who I am and, my belief system and the way that where I've ended up as a human. And I was deeply concerned because as much as I didn't want to see this person suffer, I also was really concerned about their soul and their soul journey. And I am a junkie for NDEs, near death experience books
Okay.
and podcasts, and I had a lot of information floating around in the background of what was causing me to be concerned. And I've read numerous near death experiences from those who have attempted to take their life. And let me just real quick disclaimer: I don't know what's right here. I know this is a big topic. There's more and more of this happening. I don't know what the answer is, but I know enough to know that I don't know. And I was scared and worried and concerned and all the things. My heart was just aching. And but I've read many near death experiences from those who have attempted suicide and come back to say, for one of numerous reasons, like, that is not the way. One, either if you're still here, your contract's not up, and it's not up to you to decide from this limited blinders on personal mind when to take off. Two, if you do choose to take off in that way, you're going to have to process the pain that you're trying to avoid on the other side anyway. And sometimes it's, or perhaps it's even more intense because you don't have the boon of the physical to buffer the purely energetic, which is maybe more intense. And or three, do not pass go, do not collect $200, go back to the beginning and do it all over again. And then four, I've also heard there's no there's nothing but compassion and love for those who were in that amount of suffering that they would want to do that. So I had all the possibilities swirling around in my mind. I just didn't know. And I didn't know how to love this person. I didn't know what to say, what my role was, I just was lost. And I was driving and I was having a conversation with God. And I just said, listen up, like, I need you to tell me what to do. I am so lost, like I've never been lost. I am hurting. I don't know how to behave. I don't know what my role is. I don't know how to talk to this person. I don't know. I'm just tell me what to do. And I am not talking about send me the number sequence 333. Like I need you to be specific and so clear that I'm not left going, well, maybe that was God talking to me, but I'm going to wait. Can you give me another sign to make sure? Like, I just like hit me upside the head with a metaphorical 2x4, not for reals, please, but like, just make it clear. And right after I finished up that little pep talk that with God, um, a heating and air conditioning van pulled in front of me, and their slogan was in big letters on the back of the van. And it was one sentence, but it was written in two lines, and it went in to my consciousness as two separate sentences that like reverberated internally. There was like an echo, and so the slogan was "Comfort you can trust." Heating and air conditioning, right? And what I heard internally was comfort your loved one. And the next line was, you can trust this is in God's hands. Like even this horrendous situation is in God's hands. And I just let go of the wheel like I never have before. And I just said, okay, thank you. And I'm just going to comfort this person, and the rest is in your hands. And that day, the logistics of the situation drastically changed, and it all basically shook out in a way where by the time that he was actually approved, he no longer was wanting to take off. So that was such a profound moment for me. I think sometimes we energetically clog the drain because we're gripping onto what we believe we think we have to wrangle life to meet our terms, or we're the ones that are responsible for saving the day, or making it look a certain way, or whatever it is. And that was such a profound moment of just letting go. And I think maybe that's maybe that's the whole game, is learning how to play your part and to be an active co-creator, but also to hand it all over to God simultaneously. And like the I think very often the highest truths are kind of paradoxical like that.
You sound like a person of abiding faith. And to me, faith is that kind of trust that although we are not in control, the universe is meaningful.
Yeah,
Can I offer you a prayer?
please.
Okay. Thanks also to anyone listening. If you got anything out of this conversation, let us know. And if you want to share anything about your practice before we close with a prayer, I'd love to just let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on my website, just my name, Lara, Lara. Don't sneak a U in there. Lara J Day, .com. And
Eightletters.com.
yeah, and everything is there. I've got seasonal qigong courses, and there's links for the oracle deck in the book with the winter solstice practice, and then my personal mentorship program as well with the neurogenic
Sounds great.
qigong. Yeah.
Well, we both seem comfortable with the word God, so that's the one I'm going to use.
Mm.
God, help us to be shepherds to other people's movements. Help us to continue to learn deeply of the things that inspire us and do the hard work where there isn't always inspiration. Help us to comfort others and to be there in their times of needs and to hear your voice in what we need to do. Look over Laura as she prepares her work and goes about the efforts of deepening her own capacity to be a healer and deepening her connection to you and what is mysterious and sublime and beyond and within. Thank you for journeys from youthful wiggling to dance, to yoga, to qigong, and to motions that will carry us far beyond this moment. And thank you for this encounter. Amen.
Amen.